What's happening, everybody? It's me, your resident supervillain, Mr. J. Washington, and I am here with my review for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, if you have not seen this, or you do not care, I am telling you now, pause this, put a pin in it, come back, because there will be spoilers. There's no other way to talk about this. Thank you to everybody who has shown all the love and of everything between Mad Titan Podcast, Black Boy Content Club Podcast, all the reviews and stuff, people who have subscribed, people who have supported on the Patreon. I'll be honest, I am extremely grateful for you all, because if you don't know, here in LA and in New York and anywhere that films and people who are actors, everything is shutting down because of the writer's strike. And so there is no work coming, and rightfully so. I'm gonna support the writers and I'll support the actors when we go on strike and everything. And I want to be able to do more things here. Like, I'm using the Patreon to try to get a new camera to get better quality content to y'all. So to everyone who has done that, who sent a Cash App or Venmo or any type of support, I truly and immensely appreciate it. Words cannot fully express my gratitude, so thank you. All right, let me get into my overall thoughts about this movie. I fucking loved it. I'm going to say this, and I say this with no reservation, no bullshit, none of that. The first Into the Spider-Verse won the Oscar for Best Animated Film, which it should have done. This movie is leaps and bounds above the first one. This movie is so cold that I walked out of there and was like, yo, this is pretty much going to win the Oscar again for Best Animated Film. But on top of that, this movie should rightfully be nominated for Best Picture. Some people will say, Jay, how can that happen if it's Best Animated Film? Best Foreign Film can do it as well, so please check that out. This movie is so dope, from its cast to its story, its animation, so much. There are points when you're watching this movie, right? And you get so engaged and locked into it, you forget you're watching a giant animated movie, a giant cartoon, if you will. It is so, they get to the point where sometimes they look so realistic. Things are so in depth that happen. It is amazing. The way it opens, giving you a bit more of Gwen's story on her Earth, her playing in a band and her dealing with everything, and her losing her Peter, and you seeing how you lose him, and the introduction of Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, and Spider-Woman, played by Oscar Isaac and Issa Rae, respectively. How their introductions start everything, and before, when that happens, all of this action and all this story is going on so much, and even Gwen's fallout with her father, all this goes so much, before you even get the opening title sequence, you're like, what the fuck? It goes back to Miles, seeing his life, his relationship with his mother. I did an interview for that hashtag show with Luna Laura Velez, Haley Steinfeld, and Shamik Moore. Now, Luna Laura Velez, she plays Rio, his mom. And I talked about how, because again, Miles is Afro-Latino, and they really talk about the Afro-Latino culture in this, and things that his mom wants, and the way that that a Latina mother is, and how she is, the strong mothers, and how they're about the culture and raising up their children and things like that. And you get so much of that in her love of Miles, even at times when his dad tries to ground Miles, and Miles is getting grown, because again, he's Brooklyn's only Spider-Man, and he meets. He finally gets away into the situation where he meets all the Spider-Men. The big thing that is crazy about this is this movie shouts out to, I think it's Justin K. Thompson, Kemp Powers, and Joaquin DeSantos. They took a basic-ass villain in The Spot, made it seem like super funny thing. We see it in the trailer. And again, told y'all spoilers. Make him into this immense threat that endangers the entire multiverse. When I tell you, every Spider-Man you damn near ever want to see in this movie is in there. And I notice I said damn near. Yes, you get remnants of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Yes, you get remnants of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. You also get referenced Doctor Strange and his Spider-Man, Tom Holland. It goes so deep into the Spider-Man universe. There is a point where Spot is jumping world to world. Guess what world he ends up in? Venom. Yes, he goes and ends up in Venom. So Sony is connecting. I myself have been one of those main people who've been like, yo, Sony is doing this Spider-Verse without Spider-Man. How the hell are they doing it? And they are slowly putting the pieces together. Now remember, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he is Sony, but it's more so an MCU thing. I know it gets hella confusing, but Sonyverse, Morbius, God rest his soul, for a movie which should never happen. Venom 2, Craven, all the others. I think we're getting Silver and Black, Silk, Jackpot. All of these different ones are existing. So Sony is showing you this. To watch Miles' struggle of trying to be Spider-Man, trying to make these choices, and hearing at one point that there are certain things that have to happen in their lives as Spider-Man, as Spider-People, that will push their story for, push their fixed points, as we always talk about with certain things. And the motivation that it gives Miles is what ensues this major chase. You find out, shouts out to Daniel Kaluuya as Spider-Punk. Amazing. You want certain things with that. Also, back to the spot, Jason Schwartzman is amazing. Karan Soni as Spider-Man, the Indian one. The ego, he's like, I don't work out because I don't want to get too buff. I'm already cut because of the spider. And everybody has this story. And so you're seeing so much of these different Spider-Men. But I do have to give it up to fucking Andy Samberg, who is Ben Reilly in this, the Scarlet Spider. It is something about the way Ben Reilly talks all the time. Just been, now I must live in the shadows. Like, he talks like written dialogue. And it's amazing because, again, all the elements of all the different Spider-Men that you've ever seen are there. Now, when it comes to the Spot and all this story of him and the story of the Spider-Man, it gets to a point where because remember, we know there's a third one coming. We know there's a Beyond the Spider-Verse. It gets to the point you have to ask yourself, who is the true villain of this movie? Is the Spot the villain? We all believe that Miguel O'Hara is the villain, but it's like, which one is the bigger threat to not just the multiverse, but to Miles, and collectively both? You have so much of that. Jake Johnson back as Peter B. Parker is amazing. His baby that we know we've seen in the trailer, the baby has all the spider powers. All these different things that play out. Now, I'm going to give y'all a major fucking spoiler if you stuck through thus far. I told you that, yes, Spot goes into different worlds. But also the Spider headquarters with all the Spideys that is led by Miguel O'Hara. They catch a lot of these villains that are out of their dimensions or in different things and send them back to where they belong. And so it was amazing when at one point Miles is walking, and in one of the prison tubes they have, he walked past Donald Glover as the Prowler, and they stare face to face. Now, Donald Glover in this scenario isn't just the Uncle Aaron that we saw in Spider-Man Homecoming. He's got the Prowler suit on without the mask. And it's also so dope with him and Miles sitting face to face, because remember, for years, people said that Donald Glover should be Miles Morales. So you had that. But there's still so much more I still ain't told y'all. And I'm trying not to get every single thing away because there's so much that happens in this. The way this story builds, the way it gets to who can Miles trust, the story keeps going. The soundtrack of this movie is off the fucking meter. The songs that play when they play work perfectly in every single scenario. This movie has so much. It's about 2.5 hours. Let me make sure. 2:16. So it's 2:16. It moves. I would encourage you. I tried not to drink nothing while I was doing this movie. I went to piss before the movie started. You kind of don't want to miss anything. So for most people, it's going to take 2 full watchings to get everything. But I guarantee you, even in the one sitting you do, you're going to love it. If you ask me, how does... you got Amanda Steinberg in there as Spider-Bite. What? Amanda Stenberg, excuse me. You got... I'm looking at all the names. I had to make sure I pulled up the full cast. it's so many people. You get this version of the Vulture that comes through, and when he comes through, it is crazy. These variations, these variants, if you will. Now, that is pretty much good. I'm not gonna give you a 20-30 minute review on this. Okay, I'm not. What I will say is Sony has taken this movie. Now, I don't know the point in which it ends, where the point where it ends before it goes and tells you it will be continued, is such a dope ass point where you're like, oh shit. I don't want to spoil that for you. But what I will say is Sony, what they've done with their multiverse now, and again, questioning their first like I always did, they have opened the door for Miles to walk through a dimensional portal and become real. So maybe this is how we get the transition between him and Tom Holland. But they have completely opened the door to have Miles Morales in the real world. So this is probably how Sony will get their full Spider-Man. Because yes, again, as I always say, Spider-Man is on loan from Sony to the MCU. But this Spider-Man, Miles Morales' will be the probably live action one. I want to tell y'all everything. And I want to have that full thing. But I think this is one of those things where I give you certain things. I tell you certain bits. And you just see the rest. It's so hard in this one because to go beat by beat with every single Spider person you see, the action, the animation is top tier in this. The animation is so dope. I understand now why Kemp Powers and them, when they were introduced, because I was fortunate enough to be at the premiere, by the way. When Kemp Powers and were saying we had just finished this movie Friday, which is, as you're seeing this, last week were they officially done. So people saw a screening, yes, but they weren't completely done with the movie, which is mind-blowing. They said it took over 1,000 people to put this project together, and we see why. Again, the story, there's so much heart, it's action, it's funny, you're into it. You're so into it. You want to see more of Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, Issa Rae's character. You get kind of somewhat the origin of Miguel O'Hara. You want more of him. You want more Ben Reilly. You want more Spider-Man India. You want everybody that you get. And they feed it to you, give you enough to say, all right, you got to get a second helping next year. So that's what you're going to get. Now, if you stayed through all the way through this, I appreciate y'all indeed. Please subscribe to the channel. Comment down below. Give me a thumbs up so we can boost this in the algorithm. I can't do this without y'all. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Please follow me over there on those social media sites. Mr. J Washington, MRJAY. You should know how to spell Washington. That is a definite thing. Check out the Mad Titan podcast everywhere you get your podcast from. Me and my boy BC get you caught up on all the things happening in the Marvel and DC live action cinematic universes. It is Barbershop Talk for Nerds. Come on in the convo and check out the BBC Club podcast. That is the Black Boy Content Club with myself, Moses Prim, and Chris Burns. We talk about pop culture news, movies, sports, and a bunch of wild shit in between. You can hear us everywhere you get your podcast from. And check us out visually on the Moses Prim YouTube channel. If you want to support, and many of you all have, on top of the follow and subscribe and notifications, please join the Supervillain Squad on Patreon, patreon.com/Mr. J Washington. We're going to start up a whole wrestling channel going through that, as well as there's the one-on-one with the Supervillain videos that go on. All that and more. I will holler at y'all later. Take care. I'm out. Bye.